Hello, everybody. Sorry we're a bit late. I was told never work with kids, children, or Melissa Ciummei, but there you go. Um,
I'm a
Animals.
dinosaur when it
No,
comes
no.
to
Listen,
technology.
actually, when I figured it out, it was actually my fault. So my sincere apologies. I sent you a link that allows you to share into other groups when I should have just sent you a link to come into straight and join. So my problem, my fault. Thank you for joining me tonight, Melissa. Now, how do you pronounce your surname?
Ciummei.
Ciummei. Where does that come from? Is that an Irish name?
I married an Italian, but an American, but the name's Italian.
Right. Okay. Good. Well, we will just have a quick catch up while people are joining us because there's about 400 or 500 people linked in for tonight. We
Okay.
might lose a couple of them on the way through, but that's fine. They can catch up on the recording.
Mhm.
How are you?
Good, good. I'm busy, very busy since the video came out. Um, a lot of messages, and I said this before. I think if I had put out that video 12 months ago, it would have got maybe 200 views. But because people now are so aware that they're looking for answers and they know that the answer is always money and control, that it's now resonating with a lot of people because the whole medical narrative is unraveling. It can only not make sense for so long before people start asking questions about what's really going on.
And are you talking specifically there about the Iconicast video?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a video. I mean, I notice it because I'm in quite a few groups, and when my inbox starts getting pinged with the same video, that's
Mm.
my cue to watch it. And that's what happened there. And I sometimes start a video and don't finish it, but I think I've watched that one about 3 times. I really liked it.
I
You
haven't
were you
watched
were
it.
very good, Melissa. Very good.
It's what a lot of people are saying, but I guess I have a way of breaking it down and making it palatable to everybody because a lot of times things are overcomplicated, especially within economics, and they don't need to be. They're deliberately complicated. So when you pull everything together and apply it to money, it starts to make sense.
100%. And what do you think about that video? Really touched, the raw nerves. I mean, it was quite a raw video. I mean, you're quite a straight shooter.
Yeah, I had done a round table before with TDs and doctors, and I spoke briefly in it, and um, Dave from Ryland Media told me like the room went quiet when I started talking because none of it was making sense, and when I started talking, it started to make sense what was really going on. So when he got me back down, he said, "Okay, it's brick to the face time. No more information, just put it out there." So um, that's what I did. And I think, well, 25, I was told 25% of it was taken down after 6 days with like 500,000 views. 25% of those were from Australia and then a high percentage from New Zealand. So you have to realize these people are living it right now. What I'm talking about is where we're heading. That's where they're living right now. I've talked to quite a few people from Australia. I think from the 17th of December, 90% of shops will not grant you access if you haven't been double vaxxed. And that doesn't make sense within the medical framework of it being, doesn't stop you from getting it, doesn't stop you from passing it on. It's merely a treatment. It's supposed to be a treatment to reduce symptoms. That's what it's claimed to be.
You
That,
mean the jab itself as
yes.
opposed to the passport? Yeah,
Yeah, so you can't attribute the passport to any medical cause because
absolutely,
the
100%.
vaccine doesn't reduce transmission. So if it doesn't reduce transmission, what are these passports actually about? Well, it's a precursor because to the digital ID, which the end game is central bank digital currency tied with a social credits and a carbon credits system. Right now, they're psychologically prepping everybody that if they want to take part in any transaction, they have to have a QR code. And that's just going to switch into a financial QR code. They've already been working on this in Northern Ireland. They have the Encompass program with its Epic software, where it's all your social and medical details in one place. Now, in that app, or in that database, there's provisions for all your financial details, all of your criminal records, and your license. So they're already putting the whole infrastructure into place. Now they'll get it onto an app. The app will combine all your financial and all your medical details. Now, why would they want that all in one place? Well, obviously they're moving into a social credits, carbon credit system, because the reason, anybody who has followed what's really going on for a long time knows that it's always been a tiptoe. So you could never really point it out. This time it's like there's a race towards the end. And the people that are aware of what's going on can't figure out why it's a race towards the end. But when you frame everything in the context of a financial collapse, then it makes sense, because their control over the population is from money printing. They print money from nothing.
Yep.
And get us to work for it, which has been great for them. That has collapsed now. So when that veil falls, their control over the population is gone. And they're either going to have to tether to something real again, which they don't want to do, or they can bring in a new system where, instead of it being a consumer economy, we're moving into a control economy where you have to be obedient. The social credit system, if anybody looks at what's going on in China, if you speak out against, there's a billionaire in China who spoke out against the Communist Party, who just was disappeared for months and then come back penniless. They have complete control over you. This is the only thing that they have in place, because the current money system, 3%, 2 to 3% is real. The other 97, 98% is generated from debt. This is why they had us so consumeristic, because the economy was growing based on the more debt that they could create, the bigger the economy grew, the more money that they made. And they got more and more creative with ways of generating debt. Even the fact that I remember the first time I went to America in, about 1996. I remember everybody had car loans. Everybody got cars and credit. And back then, that's not something that we really did then. But that was just, again, there's more and more creative ways to get people into debt. University, mortgage, okay, but then it was university car loans. They had to create new ways. That has collapsed under its own weight. It collapsed in 2008. People don't realize that this should have happened. What's happening right now should have happened in 2008, but they managed to kick the can down the road. They didn't even try to fix anything. In August 2019, at the Jackson Hole Symposium, that's where like the bankers and economists meet, BlackRock proposed that the central banks were to go direct. They anticipated a crisis in August 2019. And should there be a crisis, that the central banks were to go direct, as in cut out the commercial banks. 1 month later, you had the repo market crisis. It's like the overnight money lending market between banks. They have to balance their books every evening, so they would lend between other banks and then pay it back the next morning. That's all was going on. Normally it's less than 2%. That night there was a mistrust in the market, and it went up to 10%, and the Fed had to step in, start printing. That's when the money printing actually started. Like the real QE really started in earnest then. And then, so that's August, September. 1 month later, you have October, you have Bill Gates' event 201.
Yeah.
And crisis. So you have the crisis in September, the crisis, then the COVID crisis, which BlackRock anticipated.
Yeah, of course. And this is, I mean, you and I chatted about this offline. I mean, I'm ex-financial services, so I've been in the mortgage game. So I've been involved in this debt spiral. I've seen their fancy ways to create debt. Something that struck me, because I sold my business in 2008 and I had to sell it fast in a fire sale. I was lucky to get anything, Michelle. Melissa, sorry. I was actually really, really lucky to get anything at all. But we got out and we got something, and I was quite happy with that because it gave me time to think. And it gave me time to look at why I knew nothing, because I didn't know where money came from when I was in the mortgage game, pathetic as it might seem. But a lot of people are like that.
For 2 years, and I never was. You're not taught. You're not told. It's a secret.
Yeah. Well, I was really disappointed in myself. But watch this little video, because this was from 2008, and I think this is one of the rare times where you get to see a politician speaking the truth. So just give me 2 seconds. I'll just share this properly, and you'll be able to hear this as well.
On Thursday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, the Federal Reserve noticed a tremendous drawdown of money market accounts in the United States to the tune of $550 billion was being drawn out in a matter of an hour or two. The Treasury opened up its window to help. They pumped $105 billion in the system and quickly realized that they could not stem the tide. We were having an electronic run on the banks. They decided to close the operation, close down the money accounts, and announce a guarantee of $250,000 per account so there wouldn't be further panic out there. And that's what actually happened. If they had not done that, their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours the world economy would have collapsed. Now, we talked at that time about what would happen if that happened. It would have been the end of our economic system and our political system as we know it. And that's why, when they made the point, we've got to act and do things quickly, we did.
Yeah, that's where we are now. We were there again under the Obama administration. He had to inject $1 trillion into the economy or it would have collapsed. And that's where we are right now. People don't realize how fragile the economy is. And because we have a global economy, now they're pulling levers to try and save it until they have their new system in to try and keep it afloat. But the levers that they are pulling, first of all, they're running out of levers. Second of all, they're creating bigger problems with what they're doing with the supply chain. It's taken decades to get the supply chain running like well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a live experiment. They think they know what they're doing. They think they can second guess the outcomes of all of this. Not that easy. This is out of control. This
is why the free market, it's not ideal, but it's the best that we have, because problems have to be dealt with immediately. And that's why socialism never works, because governments tend to be ineffective and inefficient. They've let inflation run. They had to close down the economy because the credit market had seized and they had to relieve this. And the only way that they could do this was to completely shut down the economy. And they're opening it up in tiny bits, but it's a creative collapse, because it's open it up a little bit, shut it back down, open it up a little bit and shut it back down, while all business is moving towards the multinationals, the Amazons, that kind of thing.
That's right. And a debt problem or an economic problem is not scary enough to get the people to comply. You needed an invisible threat like COVID to allow them to execute their plan.
If you had told people, okay, the economy is going to collapse, we're going to have to shut everything down for a while, what would people have done? There would have been another run on the banks. Their central bank digital currency is to prevent any other run on the banks in the future. That's why they're pushing to get it in. It's impossible to do a run in the banks with central bank digital currency. So yeah, people would have been scared, and they would have done a run on the banks, and things would have collapsed even quicker. So they had to create something over here while they did their creative collapse. Now, with money printing, as you know, that is inflation. The consequence of that, inflating the money supply, the consequence of that is higher prices, which is where we are now. That's a tax. It's a hidden tax, because it's a transfer of purchasing power from the savers to the government. And with the Cantillon effect, that where the money enters the market, it's worth more. So by the time it filters down to us peasants, it's worth nothing. There's a wealth heist going on right now. They have to let inflation run hot. They can't raise interest rates. If they even try to taper right now, the stock market will have a taper tantrum. Everything will wobble and collapse. And when the stock market collapses, everything's going to collapse with it. So what I see them doing is they're going to let inflation run as hot as they can until they have transferred as much as they possibly can. Then they're going to have to raise interest rates to stem the inflation. Now, that's not going to have an immediate effect. You're talking 12 to 18 months before that clicks in. And then can people service, if those that have managed to keep their homes through everything, can they service the debt of their home that's been overinflated at maybe 20% interest rate? So what's their move after that? Well, if you go back to World War I, what they did was they raised taxes to 90%. If we move into a central bank digital currency system, they can tax you and there's nothing you can do about it.
100% agree. And this is the thing. They could have came to the world and said, again, I want to ask you this question. They could have came and said, we're having problems. You know, we've created this financial system. It's buckling at the seams. Let's level with you. We need to change it. And we're going to enter into all the countries are going to get together. We're going to talk about, we're going to treat it like an emergency. It's not a climate emergency. It's not a COVID emergency. It's a financial emergency. And we want you to understand it, and we're going to explain it to you. But it's a bit more sinister than that, isn't it? There's a lot more to this when you look at the coercion and no jab, no job, and coming for the kids and all of that kind of stuff, Melissa.
Well, I mean, they just announced in the UK, didn't they, that over 75s wouldn't be getting health checkups because of the stress in the NHS. And that's the demographic that we're supposed to be protecting, because the average age of death with COVID is 81, 82. So these are the people that we are supposed to be protecting. And we're now saying to them that they don't need their health checkups. That same demographic is, well, you know that there's a demographic issue with pensions with the baby boomers.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
These people are now about to cash in on their retirement. They have so many issues going on right now that I don't think there is no fixing it. They have to, I see what they're doing, because they can't, if they start explaining to people that with like stock buybacks, the stock market's completely overinflated, if they start explaining to people that, like say Tesla is 2 to 3 times overvalued at least, and then people realize, well, where's my pension? Where's my pension hedged? If they realize that the pensions are actually a Ponzi scheme, if they had have put out that it was an economic collapse, I found the first video I did was called "Lockdowns Do Work."
Yeah, so it was a good video. And
I got so much messages about that. I found that people didn't really care about their health, but when you talk about their money,
yeah,
they prick up and they want.
The context there of your "Lockdowns Do Work" video was that lockdowns do work to smash economies.
Yes.
Which was the intention.
Yeah. And so had they come out and overtly said, look, we're in an economic crisis right now, we need to shut everything down, we need to reset the economy, people would have started asking questions and there would have been a revolution. People don't seem to care about their health, but when it came to their finances, I think that would have been when there would have been pitchforks taken to every...
and they don't think as well. Yeah, torches and pitchforks.com. Absolutely. They don't think we're smart enough. Again, I sometimes look at it and I think there's a bit more of a sinister agenda running behind the scenes here. I don't trust these people at all. I don't like them. I don't trust them. I don't like what they think of us. You know, use the word peasant earlier. There's an element of truth in that.
That's
you know, with these particular people. I've brought up in Glasgow in the 70s. You know, something like 70% of people lived in council houses. You know, owning property is a relatively new thing in the grand scheme of things.
debt-based economy.
And debt's a trap, though, isn't it, as well?
It is.
Because they can turn that lever up any time. They can call in the loans. They can blacklist you.
I have a friend who works at a homeless charity. She volunteers and a food bank, and she has told me that the majority of people coming into the food bank are not what you would expect. It's actually middle-class people who are that snowed under with debt that there's nothing left for groceries. And it's a matter of, like, as you say, one further notch up and everything collapses for them. People stopped looking at the value of a house or car. They just started looking at, can I meet the minimum payments? And they're now stuck in a trap where they're about to lose absolutely everything. When this does collapse, they have told you will own nothing and be happy, because they have to tell you that.
That message has to start sinking in. They like to telegraph things, don't they, well in advance?
Well, how are they going to? Are they just going to tell you that you're going to own nothing and explain why you're going to know nothing? Because you and I both know how you're going to own nothing. And a lot of people seem to think there's going to be a debt amnesty. In Weimar Germany, in the collapse, even the mortgages, the banks never fail. They're always bailed out to some degree. Now they're doing the bail-ins this time, but in Weimar Germany, for mortgages were renegotiated against a gold value. So people, with inflation, it tends to be that inflation is horrible for savers because your purchasing power is being inflated away. It's good for those who hold assets because they're raising with inflation, and it's great for those who are in debt, the government. Or big businesses. But by the time it filters down to us peasants again, who are in debt with credit card, car loans, mortgages, they'll renegotiate our debt, but they'll not renegotiate the debt. They'll get bailed out. It's the way it's always been the way, because we let these, for me, psychopaths make the decisions for us.
Well, that's it, because I mean, you look at the stock market, the smart money can exit the stock market anytime it wants, but it owns too much of it. If it exits too fast, it can create a panic. But they can use their pension fund pals to buy their shares off them.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. Yeah,
that's what's happening. So our pension funds are propping up these fake stock prices as the smart money exits, and the sucker. It's not even sucker pension money. It's white collar crime, Melissa. Let's call it what it is. I mean, let's look at something else, which is two examples of white collar crime, because it ties in with some of the things I want to chat to you about. Because I think I want to chat to you about how we get these people in some shape or form, or how I'm not a person for giving up on this nonsense that's going on and just rolling over and accepting that this is their way is going to be the way. But have a look at this. Okay, so this is evidence of criminality as far as I'm concerned. Now, can you hear and see me okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a company that bungled a 250 million contract for protective equipment has seen its profits increase by more than 2,600. So long story short, this company got a 250 million pound contract from the government.
Mm-hmm.
They sold them 50 million masks, a £5 a mask. The mask didn't work. Okay. I think it was an offshore fund based in Mauritius, a hedge fund. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To get this through government, they put it through what they called a VIP lane. These are all known knowns, Melissa. These are facts.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 250 million deal was pushed through a VIP lane before winning the contract. An email about the company was marked urgent VIP case, very urgent VIP escalation. This is all fingerprints on evidence here. Okay. One official wrote, if the deal fell through, Andrew will escalate as high as he can possibly go. They stole 250 million quid of our money and they met behind the bike sheds and they split it up between 4 or 5 of them. That's what happened there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Here's another one. These people are in charge of our money. We're going to give them corporate governance over the country's money, that our national insurance, our tax, or what we borrow, what we spend money on. Nearly 20 billion is to be lost from COVID loan schemes. There was something like 450 million from 7 addresses in the City of London. 7 addresses got 450 million.
Yeah.
Alyssa, if you and I put on masks and went and robbed the bank for 15 grand, we'd do 25 years each.
Yeah.
Now, this nation is so punch drunk. What are we saying about that? Because our government has basically, they're saying that the fraud is going to be around 20 billion. Okay. So 7 billion of pure fraud, 7,000 million pure fraud of COVID bounce back loans. Now, that wasn't all low value criminals getting involved there. That was a feeding frenzy for these guys. They have gone to town and they've created that contract and those contracts and that kind of money and this vaccine rollout and the amount of money and corruption and dirty deals, and then they've got you thinking we're going to get Boris on a Christmas party where he might have broke the 2-meter rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they get us. They make us. It's like we've done this a few times in the UK where we get a politician for upgrading his rail ticket, and we think got them. Democracy wins. You know, he was meant to be travelling with the plebs, and he stole or he got his flat painted for 300 quid, and now he's been fired. And we think democracy works because the people have spoken, and you can't con us. When these people are stealing billions.
The currency is in a race to the bottom right now. So they are printing, giving it out to their friends. It's all connected. And they're taking that and they're actually putting that into tangible assets. They're buying up real wealth.
Land.
That's 150, that's not sitting in a bank. They have transferred that and are buying up all the actual assets.
Yep.
Like hedge fund companies at the minute are buying up as many houses as they can.
Yep.
Lloyd's was Project Generation. Lloyd's have decided to become landlords. So they know that the game is up. They're printing the money and buying. And meanwhile, we're being fooled into thinking that our house that was worth 500,000 is now worth 750,000, and we have this crazy idea that we're wealthier. People have attached a nominal value on wealth. That's not what wealth is. That's a representation of wealth. Wealth is goods and services in the economy and labor. That's what real wealth is. Because if your house is increasing value from 500,000 to 750,000, unless you're sitting in the same house. So if you have spent that money on it and you have improved it and you've put, I don't know, a swimming pool on it, yes, you are wealthier because you have improved the actual wealth and created more wealth around that. But it going up in nominal price. And this is where people, I think, are falling behind with crypto. They're attaching a nominal price to it. They have us conned with the nominal price instead of stop thinking in terms of price and start thinking in terms of possession, because all of these hedge fund companies are going for possession right now. They're not going for that. That's why they're throwing a little bit into Bitcoin because of control. But for people, we need to start thinking like they're thinking. If you want to get out of this, you need to start thinking and doing what they're doing. And that's why I keep telling people, if they have money in the bank, it's decreasing in purchasing power. Like I think in Turkey this year, I think they've dropped 45% value in the lira. I think 20% of that has been within the last month or two.
Yeah, and there's very little.
What happens to the pound?
Absolutely.
Then people will rush, because the way it happens, it's already happening. People are seeing inflation right now. And the way it normally works is, say that you needed a new TV, you wouldn't buy it. If your TV was on the blink, you'd wait for it to die, and then you'd buy a new one because you think, well, it's probably going to be cheaper. If you know that everything's inflating, people start buying in and getting rid of cash, and that's when it tips over into hyperinflation. And by the time it tips over, there's nothing left to buy. People are rushing to get rid of money, and by what the hedge fund companies are doing is buying up all of the things that people would actually buy. And then they're going to, they're telling us, you will own nothing and be happy. You will rent what you need. Listen to what they're telling you. They're telling that you're going to rent from them because they're going to own everything, because they printed the money and bought up all the actual assets while we were sitting at home thinking it was great because we were being paid to sit at home. But I don't understand how people didn't question being paid to stay at home.
Well, that was inevitably just a holding bay for the future unemployed. And if you take furlough, you take no jab, no job, you take this economy, you take roboticization of the workforce. Ultimately, there's no good news for the property prices at all.
No.
Even if you take the vaccine damage and what a lot of people think might be an outcome of that over time, that's not going to push property prices up either. Nothing is going to push property prices up.
Property prices can only go one way, and the thing is, what will happen is they will inflate, and it'll be that nobody can afford to buy them, and then they'll drop. But by the time they drop, nobody will be able to afford to buy them anyway. And it's very like with the carbon credit system, how they're going to get properties off of people. Well, there's several ways that they're going to get properties off of people. One is imposing. So if you're a renter, they can if you have rental properties, they can impose that you have to put in these fuel pumps that cost like 10 to 30,000. That's okay if you're BlackRock, you can go in and furnish all of your homes with that because you're getting the money for free. But for the peasants like myself who has rentals, that's going to make it that I'm going to have to sell because I can't afford to do that. That's the first port of call. Second port of call, we know, is taxes. When they finish with inflation, they're going to raise interest rates. That's going to shake the tree and get a lot of people to have to sell because they can't afford the property no more. Then it's going to move on to taxes. You have wealth tax that they're discussing. Of course, it's only for the millionaires, but newsflash, rich don't pay taxes. And income tax was originally for the millionaires. That was only for the rich. So you have wealth tax, you have capital gains tax, you have unrealized capital gains tax that they're talking about. That idea has been floated about. So you have inflated people's, say, their home from 500,000 to 750,000.
Yeah, they're going to try and tax you on money you haven't even, you've earned on paper.
Yeah, that they have created that inflated price, the nominal price, but your home is still the same home. And all of a sudden now you have to pay a tax on that 250,000. If you manage to hold in there, they're going to get you an inheritance tax. They're going after generational wealth. Listen, this is their objective. Whether it's successful or not is up to the people. If the people continue to acquiesce, yes, it will be successful. But their objective, they're making their objective clear. All of the information there to be read on these NGO websites.
Yeah, it's all there. Now, a big part of their plan is the successful rollout of vaccine passports, data, whatever you want to call them. How's it going in Ireland? Tell me what's going on in Northern Ireland with regards to passports, businesses. How are they taking it? How's it been rolled out? What are the people saying?
Okay, well, in the south of Ireland, it's complete compliance with them. So the only people that can get into the bars are those who have been, and this has gone on for several months right now, is the people who have been double jabbed. They're now closing the bars because,
of course, they would. So you're saying that these bars can't make ends meet because they don't have enough punters, they don't have a good enough atmosphere because all the cool kids have been barred because we can't get in.
Well, this is we're all going to be in the FEMA camps, and to me that sounds fabulous. All us together, it'd be great crack. No, the bars now in the south are having to close at, I think, 10 or 12. I can't remember what time it is, because to reduce transmission. So they're actually laughing at you because they're telling you that the only people allowed in are those vaccinated, and the vaccinated are causing transmission. So we're closing again. So what people need to get into their head is they're not telling you. There's this obsession that if we just obey this one and this one and this one, we'll go back to normal. Normal is gone. That economy is gone. There's no way back there. No matter what, there's no way back there. They said the new normal. Well, what is the new normal? The new normal is goalposts constantly being changed and you having to be obedient. That smells an awful lot like social credit system to me in China.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they're conditioning us to move us into. In Northern Ireland, we only have the passports in. They're only coming into full effect next week. So what's happening here, because Northern Ireland's quite small, we have opportunity. There has been a legal team working on all of the legislation, because what the media and government say misstates the law. They are saying that it's up to the businesses to create this discriminatory door policy and make the inquiries. That's not what the law states. What the law states is that they have to make reasonable steps. So what is a reasonable step? A reasonable step can be that you take bookings and you say to the customer, just make sure that you have taken a lateral flow test, or that you've had your vaccine, taken a lateral flow test, or you can put a lanyard in the window saying all that. It's the same as before, like if somebody had the flu, it was their responsibility not to go into work. That puts the responsibility away from the businesses onto the individual patron of the businesses. And this is all legal. What they're working on is providing these businesses with all the legislation, so that it's going to be the decal in the window, and then they will have all the legislation in their businesses that they can download. It'll be all available in the next week. That should the police come in, you can show them what the legislation is. You can discuss the Equality Act with them, because what the government is actually asking these businesses to do is break the law. If they
I think what you're pointing out is that the government, by sheer trickery and to create some plausible deniability in the future, is they're not actually asking them to break the law. They're just making them think that they have to break the law, but they've given the get out of jail cards are there.
Oh, it's there. Underneath it does say, please adhere to the Equality Act. So that is within their guidelines. Yeah. But the media, which is who the businesses are listening to, are not mentioning this at all. The goal is to destroy small to medium businesses, because in order to enact complete control, you need to be dependent on the government. So they have reduced all these jobs, and they originally accounted for 60% of jobs, small to medium businesses. So the government has collapsed all these jobs. They're collapsing the businesses. Then, therefore, everybody becomes dependent on the government under this carrot of UBI. It sounds fabulous the way they describe it. You get the money no matter what. Doesn't matter. And you can go, because some people just want to be artists. And you'll have the time to be at home being an artist. Yeah. The fact is, if you do not produce, you cannot consume. If I had the money printer and I printed and give everybody £1 million tomorrow, all put globally into everybody's bank account, how many people do you think that go to work the next day? Very few. So how long do you think without production the economy would last? Because it would just be consumption. There wouldn't be production. So how do you think that they're going to move forward to that? Then you're at the mercy of the government. They can dictate where you are placed in the economy. They can decide that, you know what, you're going to dig ditches. And if you don't, we can shut you off, because central bank digital currency is programmable money. It's individual monetary policy. They can decide how you spend your money. They can shut you out of certain aspects of the economy. They can decide what products, what services, and what information you receive. If they do get to implement this, they're planning to. There's no alternative. They don't have an alternative. The true alternative would be a cryptocurrency or a basket of cryptocurrencies. But right now, cryptocurrencies are a speculative asset. Mm-hmm. I've been suspicious of them to begin with. But until they function as, because people say Bitcoin, nobody wants to sell it. Because why would you sell it when the idea is that, you know, it's worth, what, 50,000 now, so it's going to be worth 75,000 in 6 months. So that's not how a currency functions. So until people start...
Totally agree with that. You can't have money that just makes money like that. That's not money.
Yeah, that's not how it functions. And people, I think that's, if Bitcoin is sincere, that would be a way to collapse it. And the enemy of all cryptocurrencies is regulation. And we see now in Australia, the Treasurer of Australia has come out and said that they will be regulating cryptos, and they're bringing in central bank digital currency. They plan to be cashless by 2022. If you notice that Sweden, everybody always talk about, well, Sweden, they didn't have to lock down, you know, and they didn't have the transmission. And people focused on the medical side of Sweden. Sweden has been a cashless society for quite some time. So they didn't need to lock down. They're already on the hymn sheet. We're being moved to sing from the same hymn sheet. That's why Sweden never had to lock down.
And we've got, I mean, this is the thing, I suppose this is to everybody watching this, you know, we've been right about a lot of things here. You know, we started second guessing this playbook and, you know, how this agenda was going to roll out quite early on in the piece. We knew it would get towards vaccines. We knew that they'd get towards an element of mandatory vaccination. We knew that there'd be a travel ban stroke implications, that there would be a climate change agenda, that they would go down the ages. We knew that there'd be damage. And we said there was going to be passports, these health passports. We said this early in the piece. I said to my son in March last year, my son lives in Australia, Melissa, he's 22. I said to him, there's a very good chance I might not see you again for a long, long time. He said, don't be silly, Dad. I said, 2 years later, I've still not seen him. You know, I'm used to spending 3 or 4 months a year in Australia.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years. You know, so we've guessed how things were going to go. And I think we have to really get our crystal balls out, for want of a better way to phrase it, and actually start to think, we're so far down the line, we've been right so often. What do you see coming next, all of us? What do we see coming next? And how do you plan accordingly to be in the best possible place?
I think they're gonna push for these passports. It's the longer, Klaus Schwab said that there's a small window of opportunity for this reset. So the longer that we are defiant, that window is closing, because the rest of the people who go along to get along, everybody has a fight in them, and this is my fight. So I don't judge other people for this not being their fight, because their fight could be something completely different that I'm not involved in. This is my fight. But for as long as we resist and rebel against it, it makes that window narrow, more and more narrow. And then the narrower it gets, the more people realize something's up here. So the longer that we can hold it back. I know their objective. Their objective is these passports. Then they'll be held back a little bit. The passports will be held back a little bit, but they'll say that the passports what they're actually for is, should this happen again, you know, we need everybody in these passports, because then we'll know everybody's location, and when we can say, okay, anybody who's been to that building, and we can close them all down. So they'll create this narrative of why the passports are actually a good idea, because their current narrative of transmission, there's absolutely no scientific data to support that. In fact, the contrary. So they'll create a new narrative for these. So they'll pull back a little bit, and then they have you on these passports. Then they're going to push that into a digital ID. So your passport will be an app on your phone. This will be all your medical data. As I say, you have the Encompass program that's going on here. I'm sure there's something similar. It's at the Epic. That's from America. That's already implemented in America. Then it'll be linked to, there's already talk of central bank digital currency. They'll bring in central bank digital currency. they'll try to. I think the benefit that we have right now, and it's a matter of time before we're all shut down from the internet, the information that they have, we have a lot of it. This is the benefit of the internet. Yes, they needed the internet to get to the masses, to manipulate the masses, but there's a portion of us that are genuinely inquisitive for information and have that information. So I think that they will bring in their central bank digital currency. It's not going to be immediately a move to, once they get that in, then the tiptoeing starts again. Then it'll be incentives. You know, like, is it in China, you can get like 50% off your groceries if you have a high social credit score, or you can get like really low interest rate mortgages. Whereas in the D categories, you're not allowed to participate in society. You have to be reprogrammed. You can lose your job, lose your qualifications. So, but it'll be a tiptoe into that.
It's like
the central bank digital currency.
Yeah, it's like the nation's punch drunk, and like any good boxer or cage fighter, when they see their opponent stumbling, they just go in for the kill. They just go in with the big right hooks, their big left hooks. This is what's happening. The pummeling is not going to stop.
No.
Yeah.
It'll stop when central bank digital currency comes in. I don't know how they're going to do the switch over, because that's what I'm saying. They can't do what they've done before, where people lost houses and stuff, because people then will kick off. I think that they will try and do a smooth negotiation into it and slowly take away all of your assets, higher taxes, taxes I explained before. Or the interest rate has to rise, because that's what happened in the 70s.
Well, that's right, because people understand that there's a big debt being built up here. You know, oh, it was COVID. We went through a pandemic. Look how much money we had to borrow to keep you alive and keep you in furlough and your bounce back loans and all those vaccines we paid for and all those fake masks we bought.
Well, people always ask, who do we borrow money from? Who?
Exactly.
I know. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, this is
grandchildren. That's who you borrowed it from.
Yeah, but well, this is it. But that's a way for them to increase these taxes. And as you say, you know, how did they get you to, you'll own nothing but you'll be happy? Now, one of our members actually asked a wee question here, which I'm going to throw up here. So here's a wee question. So what about if you own? This was when we were talking about properties and, you know, potentially losing out on them with debt and all of that. So what about if you own your property car outright? Can that be taken away? Now, it's an interesting question, because it gives you an insight into the way a lot of people are thinking. That's not an uncommon thought to be going through people's minds just now. Someone in a 500 grand house, Melissa, you could argue, they say they've got a 500 grand house with a 250 grand mortgage.
Yeah.
You know, they're sitting on 250 grand's worth of equity. And now they could buy a nice little shack somewhere, a little cottage, a little wooden log cabin. They could buy a bit of land, they could grow their own food. That seems far more appealing to people having been through 2 years of this nonsense. They might not have thought of that before, but right now that might sound like a little slice of heaven on earth for people. Now, in that situation, if you sold your house at 500 grand and you got that money and you paid back your 250, then there's a slightly different outcome. It's you'll owe nothing, but you'll be happy, because now you don't have a mortgage and you own your wee log cabin and you own your wee bit of land and you're making 40% of the food that goes into your belly every week in your garden. You know, so can they come for that too? You know, are we in all-out war with these people?
For me, I own my home outright. For what I have done is, I would be aware that they're going to try and come at me for taxes. I need to look into it, because there is the option of putting your home into trust, you know, so that they can't take it off you. But that's what the rich do. But it's something I haven't had the time to actually look into it.
Well, that's why you need to play their games, isn't it? Because if they can do it, then we can do it.
But what they do is they make it financially affordable if you're super wealthy. But so if something costs 100,000 to do, but you're a multi-millionaire, it's worth it. If something costs 100,000 to do and your house is only worth 500,000, this is how they create these loopholes for the wealthy.
Yeah.
I am prepared. What I have done, I did have a couple of rentals. I probably would have bought more. I'm out of property right now. I'm keeping the rentals that I have, but other than that, I'd be out of property. I wouldn't go deeper into it. The ones that I would have would be fine. They're not, not a big expense, and they'll always garnish, and they're almost paid for anyway. I have savings in precious metals. So should these taxes come in, I can hold back for as long as I can. Precious metals, people don't really it's not an investment. Your home isn't an investment because you need somewhere to live. People think that their home is an investment. It doesn't matter what it's worth because you need somewhere to live. Precious metals are not an investment. Precious metals are wealth preservation and a hedge against inflation. So instead of holding money that is the purchasing power of it is leaving on a daily basis because the money printing hasn't stopped. If you buy into now, precious metals at the minute, very flat. They have been flat in an everything bubble. Stock market, all-time highs. Crypto, all-time highs. Even art, all-time highs. Precious metals, completely flat. Highly manipulated market, but all markets are manipulated. They have to keep them low in price because a high gold price indicates a weak economy. That's where I have my savings so that I can get out of Dodge if they do start with the wealth taxes. If you have, people have saved all their lives and bought and bought and bought and bought and bought, but if a 1% wealth tax would wipe everybody out, and they'll say it's for millionaires, but in an inflationary economy, I mean, in Zimbabwe, everybody's millionaires. In Venezuela, everybody's millionaires. But it's worth nothing. So be careful of what they're doing when they're creating inflation. The laws that they're bringing in.
Do you think, I mean, things like gold, and I get it, gold and silver, it's instead of having, you get one house you live in, that's an investment, or it's the roof over your head. If you get more wealth, where do you put it? In the past, you might have put it into a pension fund. It not attracting me right now at all. Gold. Now, what makes you think the gold that you might have is valued at what, the tangible value? Do you think it's just because the price has been pushed down so low that because they want to own it, they don't want it to be a runaway success? They don't want to see gold going like Bitcoin, because then everybody will want some gold.
Well, first of all, you buy something when it's cheap. You don't buy it when it's high, and gold and silver are very cheap at the minute. Poland have put in an order for another 100 tons of gold. China have been back. China have about 40,000 tons of gold. Not that they admit to, but no gold ever leaves China. India would have a high level of gold. Russia can back. They have 23% in gold. Central banks hold gold, the IMF hold gold. So again, look what they're doing. Now, as I said before, there is the potential for the SDR to be the new reserve currency. The dollar is not going to be the reserve currency in 10 years, if it lasts that long. It's done for. We're moving into a new reserve currency.
Mm-hmm.
The SDR is also printing another money layer that nobody's really talking about. Their positioning, again, objective, whether it's successful or not, is another thing. I think that, if anything, this has taught us to move away from globalization. They're going to it's always, not always, nearly 5,000 times, 4,800 times when fiat currency has collapsed and a new currency has come in, it's tethered to gold. It's tethered to something. Gold comes out of the ground at the same rate as population increase. So there's a finite amount of it. Ask yourself, why are they holding gold? For me, cryptocurrency is a great way of getting money out of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
People are putting all of their savings
Yeah, they get this. All that hot money, all that inflation could, go in there.
And cryptocurrency will continue.
And
Blockchain.
who you can't cry foul. I mean, if it falls to zero, you can't cry foul and say it's like tulips.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
tulip bulbs. It's exactly the same. What you left with, a bunch of flowers. you know,
Yeah.
it's exactly. Arguably, tulip bulbs are worth more on the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. At least you've got something physical. You know.
Because a lot of cryptos aren't even now. As I say, there's a lot of money to be made in it,
I
but
think there's money on the way. I don't think everybody's got crypto yet, so I think they want more sucker money in, and it could be a little ride up for a while. Maybe I
yeah,
don't know.
it will. I would say that there'll be. I can see that it'll. That I reckon around 80 to 100,000 will let Bitcoin get to that because they want to hold the money out of the economy. So they'll have to let it. They keep on setting it the way, so it's down. It was very volatile, but that's deliberate because there's the idea that nothing goes up in a straight line. But gold can never return to zero. Crypto can return to zero. For me, crypto is a brilliant blockchain is the future. They want to have everything on a blockchain. So they got these really intelligent people in to figure out how to put everything on a blockchain. And that's what crypto's function is serving right now. And then they can come in and completely regulate it, and they have all the tech to put absolutely everything on a blockchain. It's a control mechanism. That's what the blockchain actually provides for them. They have complete control. They want to take a lettuce from seed to know what field it was in, what row, what position, what truck it went on, what supermarket it went to. I don't know about you, but I don't. That's not something that's necessary for me. That's necessary for them in a complete control. People are, you're right, moving towards. People are starting to really, what they didn't anticipate in locking people up. First of all, they locked up critical thinkers, and that was not a good idea. Second, people started to think, what is it all about? People need to have an honest conversation about death. And I think what the problem is from you are 4 years of age, it's 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off. So school, work, 5 days on, 2 days off. How long have you to do that for? Until you die. Because these pensions of people going and retiring in Florida, some, very few will, but if you're the last one into that, you're going to lose. So people are now asking themselves in the lockdown, I hate my job. I hate my job. So what is life about? They have given people that opportunity. And there's so many people now that are kind of want to move towards an alternative lifestyle of simpler lifestyle. We're losing, the consumer economy is gone anyway. See this buy. That's dead. This new economy.
Yeah, that's dead. I mean, I used to buy a lot of suits and shirts and ties and shoes. Zero chance of that happening now. Absolutely none.
That's that economy. That's for all of us. That's gone for all of us. It's back to how it used to be, that there's a select few that would be buying those things. So now people are starting to think, well, what is my life moving forward? And they want a simpler life, and they are looking. Like I have started growing. Well, I have an orchard, and I have
Very nice.
of chickens this past few years. But I'm like, I've got a greenhouse, and I'm looking at growing my own food. I don't look at it. It's how you frame things. It's not about fear of what they're going to do. For me, I think that's an interesting thing to learn how to do and frame it in that context instead.
I think whether people, I don't really, I spoke about this recently. I think it was 1950 or something, 40% of all UK food production came out of people's gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's quite considerable. That's a terrible habit that we got out of. They must have worked really hard to stop us doing that amazing, or having that amazing skill and passing it on, because it never get passed on from my parents to me.
No, and they also had larders.
Absolutely.
A guy I know, his mom is, I think, 92. She still does her gardening. He's in his 60s. He grew up eating mostly out of the garden. This is something that we have lost, and it's even worse than that. It's not even that we're not growing anything by ourselves. We don't have any food in the cupboard. People,
Yeah.
just, it's eaten out all the time. I'm
Well,
I'm the fifth generation in this house. My father grew up in this house without electricity and running water. There's a well, you know, that's
And it worked. It worked.
changed. Yeah, but that's how much change things have changed in 1 generation, 2 generations. That was the debt-based economy. The debt-based economy created all this, and everybody's wealthy because we are all wealthy. But now these multinationals are moving into poorer countries and moving into Indonesia, into India, to reduce their costs, to make more profits. And they are creating middle classes in other economies. These middle classes, now say in India, I think 1 billion people in India don't have air conditioning. Well, now that they have a little bit of money, they want that. So this is where the energy crisis is coming from as well. We don't appreciate how convenient and cheap energy is now. And that's why I say energy is.
But it's another thing they can ramp up.
Mm-hmm.
They can turn up the price of that electricity and are to a certain extent, and gave us a little taste of no petrol and no, sky high gas and electric bills. You can see what they can do at the flick of a switch.
We are going like that. And people that think that they're going to go back up that hill is crumbling. As you're walking down it, it's crumbling behind you. There's no going back. And people need to realize that if you keep on walking, you're only going down. So, and it'll get to the point, for me, when central bank digital currency comes in, that's a difficult road to get out of. When we allow that, that's it. It's going to be very difficult to get out of that. That's going to take a generation or two to find their way out of that. And they will, because we've been here before in history.
Yeah, absolutely. It's these people that you can't trust, though. Like, can you trust them to be in charge of this phone that's going to give me access to the world? I have to trust these people who are robbing us, jabbing us, threatening us, putting the army on the streets to us potentially. And I've got to trust them in my life and give it over to them on a phone. I don't think so. We really need to look at these other alternatives.
If you change it from jobs to central bank digital currency, so instead of forcing and mandating jobs, you're forcing central bank digital currency, because that's the real goal. They're just going to switch this around. They did it in the French Revolution. It was the assignat. If you tried to trade in anything but the assignat, you went to jail. So that's what they're going to do. It's going to just be switched from that. And what I find with people who hold cryptocurrency, what they're going to find is the same feeling that we are having right now, with people just allowing it to happen, with the regulation and the mandates. That's going to happen with cryptocurrency. It'll just be, they can just, in the IRS, last year's IRS papers, you had to tick a box if you had traded in any virtual currencies. If you failed to tick that box and that's a felony charge. Now you combine that with Coinbase. They went after Coinbase, took them to court. They actually give up 20 to 30,000 of their most prolific users. So they're reducing the custodians of these cryptocurrencies, and then they can go after you. So if you have 100,000, so you got 10,000's worth of crypto, and now it's worth 100,000, and they tell you that they're going to tax it at 90%. Well, then you're back down again, because how do you buy something? If I wanted to buy,
you'd have to sell, and you'd have to sell at the same time as everybody wants to sell. So now there's a race to the bottom to get your money out.
Yep. They have manipulated that market. They have been manipulating. Bitcoin particularly has done boom, bubble, bust. 3 times a drop of like 80%, and the last time was a drop of like around 40%. The 2017 bubble, it dropped from 20,000 down to 3,000. Christopher Giancarlo admitted that that was done under the Trump administration with selling futures. They are master manipulators at every single market. So if people think that Bitcoin can be decentralized, Unless the people get on board and use it as a currency, then it can. And even with the internet, they can't actually shut down the internet because the infrastructure is there. So the internet can't be tapped into. That there, I see that as how it's going to be. But what tends to happen in these tightenings, black markets emerge, leads to civil unrest, and that's when the revolution happened. But we're out here trying to warn people, listen, we're heading towards a cliff. What do you want to do? Do you want to wait until you go over the cliff and see who survives and gets up and starts climbing up again, or do you want to avoid the cliff? But I don't see that. It was explained to me, and I thought it was a brilliant way of explaining it. It's a juggernaut right now, and we've been trying to get in front of it, and we're going to be the first ones off. So I think a lot of people who are aware of what's happening right now have realized this and are sidestepping it and creating alternative communities. So that the people that maybe are on the juggernaut realize it, they jump off. We're starting to create our own structures. So the revolution is already happening within us. When they realize, they will jump off and it'll grow and grow. So a lot of people I know right now, I know from me, I'm tired. And a lot of people are feeling exhausted, they're feeling hopeless, but this never works because bad people are actively bad. These psychopaths are actively bad in their plans.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
tend to be passively good. We don't do anything. We're not active in our goodness. We're just in the good people will step forward and are becoming more active, because I know that you're the same as me. You're not doing it for yourself. You're going to be fine. You can live your days and be fine. You know that this isn't really going to kick in, because when central bank digital currency comes in, it'll be then back to tiptoeing into a level of control. Nothing ever grows in darkness. Nothing can take root and grow in darkness. That's why there's always a balance. So it tips one way and then it tips the other way. We're tipping in the wrong direction right now for future generations. But no matter what, future generations will tip it back. But all that we can try and do is not let it tip, try and hold it back as much as we can, so that to lessen their battle. That's for me all I can say. And I think wake up to the fact that you have delegated your thinking to mainstream media. You have delegated your finances to pension funds that you actually don't even know where your money is, and you've dedicated your children, or delegated your children's education to indoctrination camps and daycare centres. We have to take responsibility back for our thinking, for our own finances, and for our parenting of our children. And that's how I think this is a great opportunity.
I agree. Yeah, it's a great opportunity in that respect, for sure. And a lot of people, and it creates new jobs. We're looking at that, setting up an Awaken Jobs website, ready to go. Give me one more day on it and it's ready. That's going to be really interesting. That whole market, these good people that you talk about employing each other, no discrimination.
Yeah.
Like old normal, only better.
Yes.
I don't see us as the breakaway society, though. I see them as the breakaway society. They're going to try something new. It's not us. They're going to try their new normal and their passports and their jabs to go anywhere. We're basically going back to a simpler lifestyle and saying, well, we're happy with our lot. We might not be going to the same pubs and restaurants. We'll be going to different ones. We might have fewer choices, but the choices we have will be good.
Yes.
What's wrong with?
I think that we're going to have more people coming on board with our way of thinking, because right now people are still holding on to going back to normal.
They think they're going back to that's gone.
Realizing that they're losing hope, that's not going to happen. Then when they lose hope of going back to normal, they start to go, well, do I like it right here? No, I don't. And then they come on board with the other way of thinking. There is, because they never addressed the issue in 2008, their hand is forced right now to rush forward. I mean, there's an IMF paper, 50-page document in 2015, detailing central bank digital currency. So it's relatively new. They're not ready for it. for me, you know, I know that there's like these big master plans and everything, but as I say, it's humans making these decisions, and you can never account. They never account for all the variables. And
Yeah, but they couldn't possibly. I mean, artificial intelligence has got a big role to play in pushing them in their modelling for what it's going to look like, for them to work out how this would roll out in a world as complex as ours. Then they've had to use these, quantum computers and artificial intelligence to pump out some of these scenarios. But I think that's why it's moving as fast as it has done as well, because the artificial intelligence is saying, well, what's holding you back here? Roll it out.
But artificial, it's only as good as the information that goes into it. Now it can quicker than the human brain, like so it can watch, say, chess players, and then it can beat the grandmaster of chess. Yes, because it can calculate every single scenario in a split second, which the human brain can't do. But if you asked AI to cure cancer, AI is as likely to just wipe out the human race, because that would cure cancer. So so for starters, it doesn't have a moral compass. It's only as good as the information. Like they're trying to train AI for driving trucks right now, but they're going to still need truck drivers to take it that extra mile. But they're now talking about virtual truck drivers, where the truck driver is at home driving the truck via AI. But all that time, the truck driver powering the AI with the information, with the data that it can use to no longer need. So people are doing themselves out of a job. Same with these GPs. They've done themselves out of a job, because now you have, is it Amazon working towards, they're kind of gauging your emotion. They're saying you can be diagnosed now online. We've been taught that if you have a rash, that's like sending a photo. Well, then why do we need a GP? Then everything can move online. People don't seem to realize that they're doing themselves out of a job. And it's not good for humanity to get up and have something to do. But as a consequence of that, like we say, people are starting to look for alternative lifestyles, because people still want to get up and have something to do every day. People don't want to sit and watch, because everybody knows that when you're off for like 2 weeks at Christmas or a week at Christmas, you're kind of ready to go back, and you enjoy
Yeah,
it.
you need something.
There's only so much TV and screens you can watch before you tune out.
Mm-hmm.
So it never works. It's a concept, it's an objective. Because of the current system, they've lost control. When you lose control of the money, currency works really, really well when nobody questions it. It is like the Wizard of Oz. But when people realize that it's all fake, then it falls apart really, really quickly. And that's where we are now. People are starting to question.
Well, if they started to question Bitcoin, their pension, whether or not they're going to get it, their health service, whether or not they're going to get it, their, an actual retirement, their property, and is it actually worth anything, and their job, and where food, what's valuable to you changes completely if you look at those things through a different lens.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I think that the way I don't think that we have been on a good path. What's important about you is external. It's what car you drive, what handbag you're carrying, what watch you're wearing, how much your house is worth. That's not for me. My degree, I studied theology at Trinity. So that was my real way of thinking. I think that you have two bank balances. You have your financial bank balance, and you need to take care of it, and you have to be in control of it and not delegate it to anybody else. That's your responsibility. But you also have like a spiritual bank balance, because if you want to know what you own, die tomorrow, see what you own. So if we kind of taught children that you have two bank balances, to be responsible with money, that it is hard earned, that value, don't buy things that you don't want, you don't need. Have a think about what you're buying, because we haven't been doing that for very long.
And look after the things you're buying as well. Look after them,
but also to focus daily on your spiritual bank balance. So do kind things for others, be a good person, raise who you are in this world. You're not here to pay off a mortgage and die. That doesn't make sense. I do feel that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and everything has distracted us from this. And this is an opportunity for us to really have a life experience instead of getting to, I think that this is what the issue is with people being afraid of death, because they've got to the age of 60, 70, retiring. And they're like, is that it? Is that my life experience? So I just sit around and wait to die. Every day should be viewed as a gift. I'm not at all fearful. Fear is the lowest frequency. Love is the highest frequency. So if you're operating from fear, that's not a good life experience for you. So no matter what happens, like I said about the FEMA camps, people are scared of these FEMA camps. I said, sounds class. I think I'd love it. Imagine the crack.
It would be good.
Yeah, don't be afraid of anything.
It'd be like that Hogan's Heroes, a bit like Hogan's Heroes. You're too young to remember that. Oh, a bit older than you.
We're not getting out of here alive anyway. This is not our home. So just enjoy it when you are here. Don't operate from fear. I see this as a great opportunity. For me, what I'm out here trying to do is warn people, to jog them into thinking about it. And that's what I say. I haven't watched the video that it's a Ryland Media video, the Iconoclast one. I've never actually watched that because it was recorded. I recorded it once and I kind of had structured what I wanted to say, and well, loosely. And then the lighting was off or whatever, technical. And then I recorded it straight after. And I couldn't really remember, had I just said that in this one or the other one? So I kind of went off the cuff on it. So I haven't actually watched what I said. But whatever it is, it resonated with a lot of people. And I think it's because people are starting to, like I say, it was like 500,000 views in 6 days. 12 months ago, you would have got a couple of hundred views, and mostly people telling you that you're crazy and get help. So people are realizing, because it's always about power, money, control. It always points out that these people do not care about us. If you had asked people 2 years ago, do you think the government care about you? They'd say no. But people are so bought into it. Like when you say, do you think it's okay then that we are not giving health checkups to over 75s? Do you think that's okay? Because how many lives are you willing to lose to save one life? You have to get this balance together, and we have all the data's in. There's no denying the data anymore. We have a freedom of information here in Northern Ireland. I'm sure you have something similar there. Over the 15 months up until, I think, July 31st, 165 people died exclusively from COVID. No comorbidity issues. Another freedom of information, how many people died of flu? 0. How many people normally die from flu? Average of 11 per month. It's in figures. So all the information is in. It can be proved, and it will be proved. There's a judicial review that it will be proved in a court of law. But by the time that goes through with everything shut down, it's too late.
Yeah, and they know that. They've planned around the timing that it takes and how much they can get done within that time. Yeah. Okay, well, Melissa, that's obviously we started late, so apologies from me. That was not Melissa's fault. It was actually my fault.
To be fair, I am a dinosaur when it comes to.
Don't worry. Well, we'll both take the blame then. No, it was my fault. Anything you want to say? Any final thoughts to people who are watching this who are looking? You can't give them. You've given them a lot of answers tonight, a lot of food for thought.
But I would say to everybody, listen, I'm just some woman on the internet, so do your research, but definitely start looking into things. First of all, look into your finances. But I do bracket it. I read a list every day, and it's I deal with something spiritual, I deal with something physical, I deal with something financial, and I deal with something mental. So I learn something every day. I touch base with my spiritual side. I keep connected with that. I keep an eye on my finances, and I go for a walk, do a workout. That's every day. So start thinking about your life. Break your life down and focus on it every day. Think about why you're here. Think about how your finances, are based. Have you delegated them out? Have you got money in the bank? Is that safe? Start looking at everything. Take your eyes off of Netflix and plug back into your life, and you'll be the better for it, and you'll enjoy it, and you'll definitely not get to the end. And for those right now who are refusing to take part in this, because I've never worn, sorry, I did wear a mask. My mum was in a nursing home and died last year in May, and they were very supportive to get me in. You know, they tried everything to make sure that I could get in to be with her. So I completely complied because they were on my side, and I did comply then. But other than that, I will not partake in the lie. People need to hold strong right now. It's going to get very difficult over the next 6 months to a year. They're going to make it increasingly difficult on us. There will be sacrifices. So you can't go to the movies. You can't maybe go to these things. We'll have to fight them in court, but we will ultimately win. And don't give up now, because I promise people that if you fight now, you will never regret it. If you give up, you will regret it, because if we don't hold back from this, the only thing stopping this coming in is the people who won't comply, because we know it's further down the line. So make the sacrifice right now. And it's a small sacrifice. Like I say, men have died in wars. So we have to say no and not go to the movies. I'm good with that.
Yeah. That's it. Well, listen, Melissa, absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you again on behalf of everybody. Sorry to anybody who watched, who obviously is now running a wee bit later, and anybody who missed it or couldn't get on can obviously watch the recording after it. So thank you very much, Melissa. You are a star. It's been a pleasure. We'll maybe do one again soon, but it was my pleasure to catch up with you. And thank you to everyone who stuck with us through the time. And thank you, everybody. Have a great night. It's been a pleasure.